Pixelshire was supposed to be the cozy game of the year, a pixel-perfect blend of Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing with terraforming, magic, town building, and all the charm you could ever dream of. But something went wrong. What started as a highly anticipated indie game now sits at the mostly negative territory on Steam. So is Pixelshire really that bad, or is there still a spark of hope under all the disappointment? Let's dive into my honest experience so you can decide whether you want to purchase or pass on this game. So starting out, the music is great. I really loved how everything sounded. I loved the intro screen, the starting screen and everything, like the art, everything about it I was feeling excited for. Now, of course, we're going to kick it off with the character creator, which I really love to see. We did have a color wheel and also like a slider for most of the options, allowing you to really choose whatever color you want for your hair and your skin. And I just love to see this option in games because, again, you can get specific on what skin color you want, even if it's more fantasy-esque and you want to be like blue or purple or pink. And then you can also apply that to your hair. It was kind of interesting though, you don't have that option for your eyes. I don't really know why it wouldn't be included for your eyes, but you did have it for your hair and your skin, so I'd love to see that. And then we had the backstory that showed us kind of how we ended up where we are in the game, and all of this really had my excitement building. I loved how the UI looked. I loved the little tips that popped up on screen as well. Like, everything was feeling and looking really good, so I was feeling excited. Then we landed in this home that's kind of made out of a ship, and inside you can see the cute aesthetic is really shining through. Everything is decorated nicely. You can also interact with the different objects in the house, such as turning on a light or lighting a fire, which I really like to see. And even the dialogue and interactions with characters felt really nice. And again, the UI at this point was pretty impressive. All of the different menus and stuff looks really cute. I actually really love how it looks and how it's set up. Another thing that I noticed right away that I liked was the little character pictures that pop up when you're chatting to them. They didn't stray far from like the pixelated aesthetic, which I thought was refreshing. Sometimes in pixel art games, you'll get like an actual picture that's not pixelated, which is also cute, but I was just happy to kind of see this aesthetic instead in the game, and it looked like it's done really well. Now, unfortunately, this is where things really start to go downhill for me, because as soon as I left this house and start walking towards town, I really ran into some issues. So the first thing that caught my attention was the UI. Now, again, I mentioned how I liked how the UI looked. However, when I'm talking to people or doing certain interactions, I started to notice that the UI is actually cut off. So I go into my settings to see if my dimensions were set up properly. I started playing around with different aspect ratios or whatever to try to get it to fit on my screen, and it was not working. At first, I actually noticed something change, and then I noticed that nothing was actually changing. No matter what I changed my aspect ratio to, the messages or little pop-ups would still be cut off on my screen. So that was kind of frustrating, but I decided to just change it to whatever worked best, and then we would keep moving. The next issue I ran into was I pressed something randomly and it just kicked me completely out of the game. It sent me straight back to the starting soon screen, and I was thinking maybe I'm okay, I'll just go back into the game. I go back into the game and I had lost all of my progress and started at the very beginning, which was inside of that ship house. Now this is where I start getting a little frustrated because, again, I don't even know what I clicked or how that even happens. I wasn't in a settings screen. I just don't even know how I got kicked out. It was very weird, and again, I couldn't trace my steps on how I managed that, so it felt very confusing and also very frustrating. So I retrace all my steps, I continue on the storyline again and get back to where I was at, which was talking to Margarita about farming. Now this is when I start to think, is it me? Am I the issue, or is it the game? Once I start double guessing if I'm doing something wrong, that's usually when I can start to tell that there's a problem with the game. Now, when I start doing farming and actions like switching between my tools, I can say, and I will say, that I do love the vision for this. So in Pixelshire, you don't have a traditional toolbar that you would normally have, which can be a positive, but also can be a negative. You have an inventory, which you can go into like a backpack, and there's a lot of inventory space that you can see, so that's really nice. But you have a tool wheel. So when you get a new tool, it would go into your inventory. You then have to go into your inventory and click on it for it then to be attached to your tool wheel, which seems like a really unnecessary step. And then you just use your tool wheel freely to switch between different tools that you collect through your gameplay. Now I move on and keep pushing through, and we get to the gardening part where you'll plant the seeds. And again, this is where things get even more confusing, because planting seeds is different from how you do other things that you're interacting with your inventory. So essentially you have to go in, click on the seed, and you have to be standing over the hole to plant the seed. And this isn't really explained or anything. You kind of just have to figure out how to plant the seed. And I'm just at this point, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm starting to feel a little overstimulated by this game, but we press on. And by press on, I mean we move on to the next tool, which is our watering can. Once that's attached to my tool wheel, I go to try to get water. It says you can get water from ponds and rivers, but you can't get it from oceans. Okay, fine. So I go to the first source of water that I see, which is a pond that I'm standing right in front of, but I can't fill up my watering can there. Eventually I find out that they want you to specifically fill up your watering can at the river that's off to the side. So I go and do that, and I start to water my crops, but everything is just not coming together. It's just not working together well, and I am just too overwhelmed to even continue playing the game. It just does not feel intuitive. And again, I know some people might be thinking, well, you didn't really even give it a chance. I did only play, I think, about 30 minutes. But here's my thing, and here's the logic behind this. I've been playing games all my life, all right? But I can tell you that after 30 minutes, this felt unplayable to me, unfortunately. Now, I don't want to take this time to really just like be a downer on the game. Like, I'm not trying to say this is the worst game that I've ever played, but if I'm being honest, and especially with my community or people who are thinking about paying for this game, especially with the price sitting at about $20 US, it is on sale right now as a special promotion for their release, which brings it down to $16.99 in US dollars. However, I can also see it's being sold on Amazon for pre-order for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5, and it's sitting at about $30 US. But I personally cannot recommend that you buy this game at this price point. I don't think that this game should be purchased at all right now, if I'm being honest. Now, I do want to talk about the positives because I know that the negatives seem really bad. With that being said, though, they are taking in our feedback, which I think is a really good sign. And even if the game is not playable right now or not a good game to purchase right now, that doesn't mean that this may not be a game that's purchasable in the future. And I personally hope that it does get better over time, because this game seems to have a really great foundation. All of the different things that you can do, such as terraforming, town building, and town decor. You also have magic and a skill tree. They even have aspects such as a buddy system. When you're hanging out with friends in the game, you can bring them along and they'll help you with things like chopping wood or mining, and even help you get some extra resources back. I mean, these aspects about this game are very intriguing. I think they are something that we'd all love to see in a game like this, especially in a cozy game. So I think that it has a great foundation, and I hope over time, as they continue to improve it, it becomes a game that people can actually play and love. With that being said, they did release a guide, FAQ, and first patch. I am going to put that up on the screen so you can see it, and I just want to share kind of what their thoughts are on everyone's feedback. They say, "Thank you for all the valuable feedback you shared so far. We are going through the forums and the customer reviews to gather the issues." They do say they will release an initial patch next week, but they said they can't guarantee every issue will be addressed. I mean, I guess this is normal. They'll probably continue to address more issues over time, and they may not be able to get to everything, which makes me feel like there are more issues than even what I've covered in this video. But they also continue to say, "It's very disheartening to see so many of you are unhappy with the current gameplay experience, and we'll do everything we can do to give you the version of Pixelshire you wanted and deserve." It does make me feel bad, though, because it does seem that they have a great foundation, like I've mentioned, and they are excited about their game. So I hate to see that it didn't do so well at launch, but I am hopeful for the future. They continue to say, "In the meantime, here is a how-to guide for the most pressing items, solution, and common bugs, some tips and tricks, and general game information." And they kind of go through some of the issues, such as how to refill the watering can, like I mentioned in this video, seeds, and replenish after sleeping. And I think there's some issue with ore and stuff like that. So they address everything in this blog. If you have already purchased the game, I would highly recommend you read through this, because it may address some of the issues that you've been experiencing and how you can work around them. But with this being a full release, it's just really disappointing to see that the game is in such a bad state at the beginning, and especially with it being a full release and not in early access. I just feel like this is kind of a common issue we see with cozy games in our space. The games are released and they feel unfinished or unpolished, and it's just kind of a reoccurring issue that we see kind of often. But of course, it's your money and you should spend it how you want, so let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. Is this a purchase or a pass for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like. And also, I have some videos on the screen right now I think that you would enjoy, so you can click one of those. And until next time, I will catch you all in the next one. Peace!